Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Josh Holmes is, of course, the moderator extraordinaire of the Ruthless podcast. There he is, the man who was missing for a week when Mossad was running wild around Iran. Just noticing, correlation is not causation, Josh, but you were gone for a week when things were going boom in Iran. Welcome back. I listened to your podcast this morning. You guys were fabulous today, and I'd like you to expand on the comparison to Donald Trump and to Mr. Mamdani, because it was really quite revealing when you juxtaposed them.
Well, look, Hugh, I think we've all noticed this at some level over the last, 6 months or since the election, really, in 2024, is that the two parties that represent the United States have gone in just radically different positions. What Donald Trump has done really over the last 5 days is reestablish America as the leader of the free world. Yeah, you and I remember what that felt like on a day-in, day-out basis. That's the America that I grew up in. You can see it happening in NATO. You can see it happening, obviously, with the Arab nations in the Middle East and how they respect what Donald Trump has done. It's a comforting feeling. On the other hand, what you're looking at with the Democratic Party in New York City is a rudderless party that has now just gone completely away from anything that could be considered the mainstream of American political thought and become radical, just absolutely insane. This is a guy who wants to abolish the NYPD, just for starters, winning a Democratic primary in the largest city in America. It's nuts, and the direction of the two parties couldn't be more clear.
Well, you laid it out, and I thought very effectively. He's going to close down prisons, and he's going to close down the NYPD. So why does he need to get rid of cash bail? I don't know if it was you or Smug that came up with that observation.
No, it's true. Everything is a downstream of the same, getting at the same thing, which is basically making New York City look an awful lot like Mogadishu, and pretending that that's going to help people. And
I believe it was your line that we're going to have to visit in a Blackhawk before long. But I actually feel bad for people. Was that you? I feel bad for people in New York. I've been listening to the commentary podcast along with you, but you guys live in Washington like I do, and there's a certain amount of collapse in D.C., but it's not that big of a city. New York collapses. It's a lot of collapse. It's a lot of people on streets, a lot of dope, a lot of crime, a lot of subways are scary, a lot of I first set foot in New York in 1980, and it wasn't a nice place. I think we're going back there. And how do you think the grocery stores are going to work out, Josh Holmes?
Yeah, no, they're socializing the grocery stores. That's good. I mean, you can just visit Moscow in 1989 and take a look at the bread lines to see how that's going to work out. You're right. I mean, unfortunately, an awful lot of Americans don't remember the 1970s New York City, but it's not a place that you wanted to visit. The biggest winners of any of this would be the Republican governors in states across this country that can provide a hospitable place to raise a family and build a business, because it certainly isn't going to be New York City if this guy's elected mayor.
Well, let's talk about whether he's going to be elected. He is to the left of AOC, although AOC endorsed him. Do you think Eric Adams can somehow mount maybe I'm not that bad campaign and stop a radical from destroying New York?
It's possible. I mean, look, the complex part about New York politics is so many ballot lines and already many, many different ways to sort of make a small plurality of victory somewhere, and maybe that could work for Eric Adams. Does it occur to you, though, Hugh, like, boy, they've really done a lot to just denigrate the talent pool of candidates that they're throwing out? I mean, basically, this was a choice between a guy who many New Yorkers, this guy was responsible for the death of their grandmother, versus an avowed socialist. And then you've got a guy in Eric Adams, wherever you think of him, he didn't do either one of those things. But where is the leadership of the Democratic Party, New York and beyond? Because at this point, it seems like a rudderless ship.
Curtis Silva has been my colleague and friend in the radio business for 20 years. Nice guy. Not going to win as a Republican. I hope he drops out. I really do think the city cannot afford. They got used to having 12 years of Blumenthal and 8 years of Giuliani, or vice versa. I can't remember which way it worked. But the radical nature of de Blasio, they tried to correct to Eric Adams, and now they're going off the cliff. How bad do you think it could get, and what would the effect be on the national brand of the Democrats?
I mean, I think it could be catastrophic. Do think it has a national brand bleed over, and there's two ways of looking at this, right? You could take a super cynical view of it and say, all right, you guys get your chance. Run with that platform of getting rid of the NYPD and socializing grocery stores, and let's see how it works out for you. And there's no question it would be an utter failure, and that is a brand that the Democrats would ultimately have to carry. But the problem is this is like a crown jewel city in the United States of America. You can't just let these things go on a social experiment or a political experiment. So there is a calculation that you have to come to if you're a reasonable voter in New York about whether or not something less bad is something that you can stomach. It's a sad situation, but one entirely of the making of today's Democratic Party, where the energy is off the left-hand side of the map.
All right, one quick question, Josh, for exit purposes. The reaction to this very successful military strike that General Kane explained in detail today has been mind-boggling. And also, by the way, the CNN report from the two anonymous people with low confidence is all over regime media in Iran, depressing the people of Persia. It just makes me crazy that these leakers don't understand the propaganda wins they give to the bad guys.
It also makes absolutely no sense. There was one stated mission by Donald Trump, and it was to go and eliminate the nuclear capabilities of Iran. Meanwhile, for the previous 4 days, Israel had just completely destroyed all kinds of missile defense capabilities within. And they were basically doing an Oshkosh air show over Tehran for 4 days. Does anyone think, even just for a moment, that if we didn't get what we intended to, that we wouldn't just go back and do it? Of course not. But that is the fallacy of the media, and their only attempt is to try to make Donald Trump look bad.
That's it. That's their whole policies, and it's not anything on which to build a party. People, you've got to listen to today's Ruthless podcast. It's a great recap of the crazy week we've just been through. And all the fellas are back, so head over to Comfortably Smug on X, or to Holmes Josh on X, or to John Ashbrook or Michael Duncan, but mostly go like and subscribe to the Ruthless podcast. If you wish to opine, you have to like and subscribe. Thank you, Mr. Holmes.